Good morning, guys. I will throw this right out here in the beginning and let you know that today's favorite homeschool resource is a bit of a stretch. It is a homeschool resource. It is something that I've used and I've appreciated, and it was in that season very invaluable for us. But I'm kind of stretching the term resource in that it's not a curriculum or a book or something that you bring in and use yourself, but rather it's outside help and outside encouragement. A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, texted me last night and asked me about how can she's new to the homeschooling journey and wanted to know how could she get her child tested, and I said, for what? That was essentially my first thought was, why? What do you want to accomplish by testing? And that's one of the things that, as new homeschoolers, and even I got to tell you, well into my homeschooling journey, I struggled with. I wanted to make sure that I was on track with everybody else, that my kids were not falling behind. And it's a really hard paradigm to break, but for if you're lucky and blessed enough to be here in Texas, we don't have testing requirements as homeschoolers specifically. And you can go to TexasHomeschoolCoalition.org and get the details, because I'm paraphrasing here. Don't quote me. Look it up for yourself. But in Texas, homeschools are considered private schools, and we enjoy the same rights and responsibilities as any chartered private school in Texas. And so we can choose. We don't have to take the STAR test. We I'm sorry, I'm still sick. Forgive me. We don't have to take the STAR test. We don't have any required standardized testing. You can graduate your kid on your own. But I understand and I empathize with the fear that comes with when you feel like you're just out here and you have so much freedom. If freedom can be fearful when you're like, wait, so it's up to me to determine what I teach. You need nobody's going to be checking on me to see that I'm okay. And if you're in Texas, it's one of the best states for homeschool freedom. So no, you are accountable and responsible for your own child's success and failure. How about that? You don't have Big Brother looking over you, making sure you taught them what they want you to teach. So that's a big responsibility. So I can understand, and I've been there with wanting to test. So a couple of allegorical examples. I'll give you some background on me and why I say I really do empathize. I have a graduate. She's 22, and I started homeschooling. My journey started with her. I pulled her out in fifth grade, and so from fifth to ninth grade, second semester of ninth grade, she was at home, and she is a very bright young woman. However, she was not about doing academics. We were fighting tooth and nail every day. Can you please just do? And we started with Rebecca. Can you please just do your Rebecca without an attitude? Can we get together? So I was feeling like there's no way that I'm doing this child justice. There's no way that, with all the pushback that I'm getting and me trying to stumble around and figure out what I'm doing, that she's going to be on track. So we re-enrolled her in public school and the second semester of ninth grade, because in large part she had some cousins that she wanted to be friends with and have the whole high school experience. So we said, we'll try it. Let's give it a try. And very long story short, she jumped right in, academically fine. A couple of comments that I remember is her math teacher saying, oh, I can tell she's homeschooled because she checks her work. Now, I'm not saying that other kids don't check their work. I'm just saying he had an impression of previous homeschoolers that he had dealt with, and that it was a good one, and that she met that stereotype in his head. Okay, so that's one. Two, her sophomore year book list, she had already read half the books on the book list during her middle school years at home. So it we hadn't missed anything. And at that time, I wasn't following. I didn't look up the teaks or anything. I just bought a Becca and was going through a Becca. And eventually, I ended up eclectic towards the end of that experience. But yeah, I no testing, and she jumped right in, was just fine. And STAR test, fine. Everything like we never missed a beat for those 3.5 years that she was homeschooled between elementary. She missed all of middle school basically, and it worked out. So that's, you would think that would be enough experience, or that would be enough evidence for me to feel confident in my work as a homeschool mom. But no, I was still very insecure. Am I doing these kids justice? So my littles at the time, my littles were very little. My girls, I think, were 4 and 5. And that's when I started seeking out a test for them. And I found a fellow homeschool mom who also happens to be an educational therapist, legit, credentialed, all that fun stuff. And she is a certified testing proctor. And so I said, I need you, Kimberly, to test my girls to make sure that I am not failing them horribly. And so for 2 or 3 years in a row, we took the Woodcock Johnson test. And that was enough to help assuage my insecurities. Because honestly, that's all it was. It was insecurity. My kids took it. My kids thought it was a game, taking a test. She's such a sweet person. And there was no test anxiety because we didn't have a foundation of like, you got to pass this test or you will fail and you will have to be back here and our school will lose money. And so there was no, you won't get a popsicle party. There was no big pressure on them to take tests. So they were like, yay, are we going back to see Miss Kimberly? That's great. So they took the test, and you guys can look up Woodcock Johnson test. It's a cognitive ability test, and it's standardized amongst participation and across the U.S. And so you have some baselines or whatever. But I honestly, that was a bit of a waste of money because I didn't have another reason. There are other reasons why you might want to opt to take a test. There are programs and scholarships, opportunities, things like that you want to take a test for your early elementary. But the big benefit for me was just kind of helping my insecurities, helping me know that I'm not just falling off the wagon and pushing my kids off of the wagon as we go. But I said that to say, let me clarify, testing is not required by the state if you are in Texas. If you are not in Texas, check out HS Homeschool Legal Defense Association, hslda.org, and they have all the legal requirements for each state on there. If you do want to test, that is available to you. I know that for a fact, if you go to testingmom.com, you have test prep resources, and you can find out where to get things like the Stanford 10 test. And of course, SAT, ACT, all of that is wide open to homeschoolers. You just register like everybody else. But I'm more talking about elementary school level tests. So you can get these tests. You can call Kimberly, and she can give you test for Woodcock Johnson and a bunch of other stuff, reading challenges, things like that. But it's not required. But if you want it. So what I do feel that tests accomplish are a tool to help figure out where your challenge points are and where you are improving. And that's how I communicate it to my kids. That's why they don't freak out over tests, because they're like, we're just using this tool to figure out what else I need to work on. And so, yeah, I'm using today's resource to say testingmom.com if you must, and Kimberly Vogel, and I'll link her in the comments too, if you absolutely, positively insist on getting a test, but you don't need it. And you really don't need it. And I am trusting the wisdom, and I have trusted the wisdom of homeschoolers before me that said a lot of people who are concerned about, well, what about when you take the SAT? If you choose to take the SAT, which a lot of colleges, especially with the whole pandemic thing, a lot of colleges are moving to either SAT test blind or test optional. Those are different. I'm not going to go into explaining that, but there's a really good video on that. Again, link it in the description. If you choose to take a test, a lot of times you can wait till the child is a year out from taking the test and take them test prep. The SAT, a lot of that is just how those questions are worded. It's not even a general, it's an aptitude test, but it's not general knowledge. It's you have to know how to answer their specific questions. So, yeah, you don't have to start test prepping from kindergarten for the kid to be able to perform in high school. Okay, so that's it. I just wanted to take this opportunity again to say tests are available. You can go and seek those out for your kid as a homeschooler if you want to. But if you are fortunate enough to be in a state that you don't have to, save your time and money and put your energy towards what meeting them where they are and teaching them what they need to know to move on in their personal educational journey, and try to get out of your head on that. I know it's hard. It took me years and years to get out of my head on that, but it's worth it. Okay, bye.